Strange is life. Life is strange. Yes, it sure is. And if you enjoy walking around listening to inner monologues with tragic tales of loss and love, as well as clicking on anything and everything that has that little pencil-shaped outline around it to signify that it has some significance, be it big or small, then you're in the right place. Just a small note that I wanted to have this review out earlier, but I was not able to secure a review code in time, even though I did get the game a day early. Totally fine, I'm not entitled to anything, hence I apologize for my tardiness here, and you've likely already decided this game is for you or not, but regardless, here is my review of Life is Strange True Colors. I want to start with the graphics here, as it's probably the most notable improvement right off the bat if we're going off the last Life is Strange release, Life is Strange 2. Life is Strange as a series has never been that visual showstopper of a game like Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is, for example, and that hasn't changed here. But this is definitely the best looking Life is Strange game to date, most notably in the animation quality, which is a big step up from just 4 years ago with the second game. The characters' mouths move convincingly and naturally to each person's voices. Even the facial animations are not wooden, they're more realistic. Characters have realistic pores and blemishes on their face, and their subtle movements make all the difference in creating these interesting characters with nuance and poise. Another highlight for me was just the vibrancy of the colors in the game. Wait a second. Life is Strange, True Colors. Oh, see, I get it now. But yeah, it's bright, vibrant, and at times will have you stopping just to admire the level of detail in the town that is Haven Springs, as you spend a lot of time walking around, getting to know the locals, and learning about the town's history. Notably, if you do look a bit closer, you will notice quite a bit of low-resolution textures in the way of clothing and some hair and beards, and even text as it appears on various objects. I don't care too much about that, it's just something that you should know of. Imagine watching a movie, or a TV show, or playing a game, or even one of your favorite YouTubers. I know it's not me, so you don't have to pretend that it is, but I'm flattered that you would do that anyway. Imagine watching them and the focus on the camera is just ever so soft. You still love them, even if you notice that little quirk, but you say, come on bro, to your computer or phone screen, thinking they'll hear you, only to realize that it's a pre-recorded video, ergo, they can't see or hear you, and you realize, oh yeah, that's how videos work. For all the improvements True Colors makes in that regard, it's pretty on par with the others. Given the large improvements to the facial animations and lip syncing, I am inclined to say it's a non-issue. I really want to commend the cinematography in True Colors. It's intelligent and purposeful, and overall just fantastic, and speaks confidence about the story that they're telling. They knew when to utilize creative shots for specific moments, and it always made those moments more impactful. There's even quiet moments referred to in-game as Zen moments. A track plays overhead as Alex reflects on what she has and is going through, and these also provide really effective uses of the camera or camera language, focusing on certain objects like headphones on a chair or a low-angled shot that pans up as Alex looks over the lake. Good or bad cinematography, as I discussed in my 2021 review for Mass Effect Andromeda, can add or detract from the story. The good news is True Colors has great camera language and it makes the narrative that much more engaging. There's also a lot of cool set piece like scenes that I won't show or talk about for spoilers' sake, but the visuals were very poignant. I like the way the auras surround the characters and some memory fragments you can find. It can be a little disorienting if you're not prepared for it, but I think the visual cues were very well done overall, even with that in mind. Final thing I want to say on graphics, though I'm kind of cheating a little bit, this is more like a performance issue. I played on PS5 and I did experience quite a few frame rate drops. Nothing unplayable, and it didn't detract too much for me, but it was enough to be noticeable. This mainly occurred in outside areas where the game was, I guess, kind of processing a lot of things at once. Likely this will be remedied in patches post-launch, but at least at launch, it was a bit rough at times. But you also shouldn't be worried about bugs or anything beyond that, I think. There was really only one that I recall where Alex almost T-posed in a scene for me, and let me be honest and say if she had done the full T-pose, this would have been my game of the year for 2021. You might be wondering based off that comment, how do I decide my game of the year? Only on one criteria only. Did I see the character T-pose in the game? Yes. Game of the year. Now on the topic of gameplay, I think it's fairly obvious what kind of gameplay this game is going to have, kind of how it's going to play. It's a typical Life is Strange, or I guess you'd say narrative adventure type of game, or as I like to kind of refer to these games as a type of more sophisticated point and click adventure game. You're clicking on objects to build out the world, and you'll hear Alex's inner monologue, also used as a tool to help characters throughout the game in a way that I won't spoil. Though it's kind of hard to really get into the gameplay here without mentioning Alex's supernatural ability to feel other characters' emotions as if they were her own. It's not as dramatic as Max's time rewind power from the first game, or as directly useful as maybe Daniel's telekinesis from the second game, but what it does do is give you the opportunity to understand the characters in more nuanced ways than before. At the outset, you might think that feeling other characters' emotions is kind of a lame power, but thinking about it objectively, feeling others' emotions is a bit of a powerful notion. You could use it to manipulate them, or understanding what they feel maybe help them with that trauma, or with what they're feeling and going through. And I always felt a bit weary about the way that I used it to solve various problems, and something that the game does deal with. It always felt more organic to the narrative, and it again allowed for more nuanced study and subtlety in the way the plot unfolded. Something I have continuously been amazed by with these games, and what I have always appreciated, and it's the same here with this series, is the way that it weaves dialogue so naturally that it feels like you're actually navigating a conversation versus making choices on a dialogue tree. It makes the player really think about what they're going to say in those tough conversations, just as you would in real life. It's almost like a tennis match where you're trying to go back and forth and trying to figure out what is the best option to pick, so that way I can extract the most I can out of this person who is not giving me the information that I need or the truth to whatever I'm looking for. As I mentioned at the outset, a game like Life is Strange is very minimalist in its gameplay, and it does rely more on dialogue choices and complex moral dilemmas, something I did notice in this game, and it's something I've always had issues with in the past with the similar style of games, with these similar styles of games like Telltale games for example, is never knowing what options you pick as you're wandering around or just clicking on things or exploring or trying to get more information are going to progress the plot unknowingly. But I'm happy to say in True Colors, it's always clear what will progress the plot, so you likely won't miss anything, and if you do, it was probably your fault. And I'm grateful for that, as I am also a fellow dumbass who definitely would accidentally do so if given the chance. Progress the story, I mean. I'm stupid. Okay, on the sound, voice, and music, I just want to say I think it's a bit all over the place, and I don't mean that it's not high quality per se, because it definitely is. There's just a bunch of tiny issues that I think are here that I will note here that many people may not notice, or maybe you will notice unless you're wearing headphones. Starting with the sound, I ain't no bird watcher or nature observer, nor am I allowed out of my house most of the time as the lock comes off of my room once a week. That was a joke, by the way, in case anyone thinks I'm serious, but the ambient noise is processed fairly well. Birds chirping and water running, almost a perfect contrast to the events of the story, where it's chipper and happy, where the story is not necessarily that, but it kind of is, but it's not. Sometimes I did notice a bit of a hitch or two in the background noise while dialogue was going, almost like hitting a speed bump. But looking back, there were no speed bumps. You hit something, it's not moving, but there's no turning back. You gotta keep going, and then it's back to normal. I think this is something with the processing of the audio. I'm not sure if this can be heard if listening through TV speakers or a soundbar, but at least on headphones, it was very noticeable to hear the audio tracks changing in between speakers of dialogue that is, and all of a sudden, every video I ever edited and made flashed before my eyes, and I can almost see the different layers of audio just playing differently at different levels. Like I said, I noticed this on the headphones, so I can't speak to TV speakers or other audio playback devices, so you may not even notice this, but it's something that I wanted to mention regardless. For the voice acting, it's very, very strong. Alex feels like an outcast, and you feel that and hear that in her voice and her nervousness around others. That's great work by Erica Mori, who really brought her to life in ways I didn't expect. Another notable performance was Han Soto as Alex's brother Gabe. I remarked back when I played Life is Strange 2 that I never really bought into the dynamic of Sean and Daniel, as I felt like they were just two carnivorous mammals who relished in the idea of just yelling at each other and acting like little shits. With Gabe and Alex, there's friction and a bit of sadness, but more so here than in 2 is a more genuine bond, at least in my opinion. I credit that to really great performances from both actors who really sold me on that bond. I really want to say more about the cast, but I think to say more and to explain why I found the performances compelling may spoil way too much, but again, just let me say the voice work here gets very high marks from me. That being said, it could just be my ears playing tricks on me. I noticed some strange bits in the way the voices were recorded. I imagine they compressed the audio as part of the processing, but I noticed some bits of that audio feeling a bit electronic. For example, if you are compressing audio, if you apply too much compression to it, it creates almost this unnatural sound to it, where you can kind of tell the voice is hitting an artificial wall. That happens more often than not here, here. When you hear my voice on this channel, for instance, I generally do some post-processing on it to make it sound crisper, and then I compress it so it's all generally the same level. I am not a pro, nor am I saying I am any good at it, as that's up to you to decide, but that's just how I noticed the audio hitting that wall, or that artificial wall that I mentioned earlier. Finally, the music is very much Life is Strange. I mean that in the best way possible. It's upbeat, it's whimsical, and it's even heavy. You also have many artists that provided music for the game, and I think it all fits very naturally, almost to the point where when you hit those zen moments where a track overlays the various shots of Alex reflecting on recent events, you won't want to leave them. Finally, let's touch on the story here a bit. If you watched any of the trailers or even just read the plot synopsis of the game, you know what event pushes the story forward. I actually have to say, I think not knowing what happens at all, hence why I tried to pick clips as best I could so as not to spoil as much as I can, is probably best. If you don't know the inciting incident of the plot, just don't look into it. The reason I say that is not because it doesn't make the game lesser or worse for you, it just does make the opening moments at least a bit more predictable. Not necessarily less impactful, but it's just easier to suss out, and you're gonna be waiting for that inciting incident the entire time. Overall, I found the story rather engaging. I liked most of the characters, and even the ones that I didn't were given enough humanity where you can at least see where they were coming from, even, like I said, if I didn't like them, or if I didn't really care for them, or find them that interesting, they all were well-rounded. About midway through, I had some pacing issues with the story. It does start off slow, and then kind of in the middle it drags, and then kind of abruptly comes to a close towards the end. It's a shame because the writing is good and the characters are great, but the pacing is a bit off. It almost felt like they spent a lot of time building the town and these interesting people, and at times they spent a lot of less of a focus on the central mystery where it kind of just finds its way to the end. But with that, I guess you could point out that that's not really even the point of the story. The point of the story is to accept the things that you can't change, and to accept your emotions as they come. It's about overcoming grief, and sadness, and pain, and anger, and fear. Dare I say it, your true colors. The final and most important part of any game is the fun. Is Life is Strange True Colors fun? It's hard to say if a game with minimal gameplay elements is fun, and I don't mean that as a negative, I know it comes out that way, but it's just that for a game like Life is Strange True Colors, it's not so much fun to play because it has super involved and fun gameplay mechanics, more that it's an enjoyable experience from start to finish. So for this review, I'm gonna replace fun with enjoyment. Is Life is Strange True Colors enjoyable? Yes. Very much. Learning about the town's history and interacting with the various characters and uncovering secrets is incredibly enjoyable, and thus it makes True Colors for me probably the most enjoyable Life is Strange game to date. It's more mature in its themes and its characterizations, and explores heavy topics with finesse and ease, making it easy to pick up and enjoy and have it tug at your heart in ways you don't expect. If you don't know, I have picked up a similar rating convention from other YouTubers I know and respect, so I rate games in a buy, wait, or pass. For True Colors, I'm going to give it a buy, but with some caveats. I know I'm cheating a little bit, but humor me. This is all 5 chapters on one disc, or in one shot, so it's not episodic at all. So what you get here is about 10 to 15 hours of story or game, and maybe a bit more if you play it more than once or go for collectibles that you missed. The game is $60 though, and given its quality, I felt it was money well spent. But for narrative adventure games, unless you like these type of games, or you're my girlfriend who likes games but only plays a few she believes she can handle, Life is Strange is one of those kinds of games. So you may be inclined to wait if you think the price is too steep for what you get, but I felt no regret spending my money on this game. It's not super demanding, but it's well written, well directed, and acted, and most of all, it might be my favorite Life is Strange game to date, mainly for the reasons that I've already gone over earlier. Anyway, I know you might already be playing this and have made your decision, but I hope you found this review helpful or at least interesting. If you like the review, consider subscribing, it means a lot, and I hope to do more stuff like this in the future. Of course, comment down below your thoughts and give me a thumbs up if you like the video and a thumbs down if you didn't. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you all soon. And most of all, I love you all.